Just for the fun of it, and to honor one of my favorite musicians at the same time, I'll start off calling Hatha Yoga's greatest gift the art formerly known as Ashtanga. Of course, just like it went with Prince, people will probably keep calling Ashtanga Ashtanga. Oh well, I've already come up with alternative names, but I don't think any of them are going to stick, and I don't care. So here we go. What makes Hatha Yoga's greatest gift? To answer that question, all we have to do is look at what's been found out recently about why people started doing Ashtanga in the first place. Does anyone really think it had anything to do with its health benefits? No. Mark Singleton doesn't even believe that, and he's the one who muddied the scholastic waters there by misrepresenting his own research. Fortunately, an academic Tantra yoga doing friend of his, James Mallinson, came along and did a much better job. So once again, not even the most fitness-minded so-called contemporary yoga people would think that Hatha Yoga began as exercise or anything close to it. So what happened? Why did a new form of yoga become popular? I've answered this question in 2 books, and I'm not going to go there again. Instead, I'm going to use the recent research as it's been explained by Mallinson, and I'm going to admit that the only reason I'm doing that is because it confirms one of my unscientifically researched beliefs. I believe that Hatha Yoga was first done by people who would not just be disappointed by contemporary yoga people, or even just disgusted. I believe they would be horrified. And why is that? Because of what Mallinson tells us about the ashram movement in India. He tells us that the tantrics, both Buddhist and Shiva worshipping, retreated from regular society and entered ashrams because they knew societal living was an evolutionary disaster. As he jokes, they knew that people shitting in the same place generation after generation was not going to work. And it hasn't. Without some kind of miracle, our societal living will end all of us. But I've also written about that. So let me keep to my point about why Hatha Yoga exists. It exists as a real alternative to the way we live, and I believe that's even though the ashram movement failed. Why did it fail? It failed because it didn't live up to its name. As Mallinson states, shram means striving, and when we put an a before a Sanskrit word, it means non, like ahimsa, non-violence. Ashram, then, is non-striving. But things are so bad now that Mallinson doesn't even go there. He can't even talk about non-striving. So he comes up with an alternative way to translate ashram. But well, he can't really get away with it because society has its big striving claws in him. It has them in everyone. It's going to take him down. So what's the alternative? Ashtanga. No one, even people like me who have been practicing so-called yin yoga for 30 years, are not free from society's grip. But Ashtangas can be relatively free.
Yeah, break your toe. No,
It wouldn't help if I went off and lived in a cave. That movement failed too. Of course, from a non-striving perspective, there's no such thing as failure.
No.
I'm
Well, I can
telling
slow
you
it
this
down.
to inspire an understanding that movements fail. It's too late. But it's not too late to take the striving out of art. But it's not too late to take the striving out of the art formerly known as Ashtanga. And that's all we need to do because everything that went wrong with Ashtanga went wrong in relation to striving. Ashtanga can be the thing that helps us link up with a part of us that's already given up striving, at least enough to help us experience yoga as an art instead of a practice. The problem is that we have to do something about the way Ashtanga was popularized. How was it popularized was literally all about striving. So the people who taught me it over 30 years ago told me that my practice would progress according to their say-so. When I was ready for a new pose, in their opinion, they would give it to me. Just the way their so-called teacher, the man who I did admittedly practice with myself, did with them. He's the one who's credited with popularizing Ashtanga. I have a different opinion, but we'll let that go for the time being and just say that he's the one who popularized the idea of giving people poses one at a time according to his say-so. And then the people he taught to teach yoga started doing the same thing. But that's what turned Ashtanga into a cult. All the so-called teachers promoted striving in the context of a societally supported power trip established by a man at the top of a pyramid scheme he initiated. So what takes the cult out of Hatha Yoga's greatest gift is simple. We remove the striving, and the way we remove the striving is by having friends, not teachers. I suggest that people all over the world establish small Ashtanga groups with no teacher. They can do the art of Ashtanga online together or in person, and if there's no teacher and no one making money off the instruction of Ashtanga, it will reverse everything. People can still do the Ashtanga sequences. They can still look to each other for feedback, especially when it comes to doing new poses, and if that goes well, the feedback will help Ashtanga artists to recognize when doing a new pose has nothing to do with progress or achievement. It will have nothing to do with striving. It will have everything to do with experiencing yogic sensitivity to energy. And that brings us back to Mallinson's research. He found evidence that the first people doing Hatha Yoga were doing it to experience something very specific. And while I still believe it all ties into their interest in pranayama experiencing, the physical evidence points to a specific, very esoteric artfulness called bandhas. And what style of Hatha Yogic art focuses the most on bandhas? The Hatha Yogic art formerly known as Ashtanga and Shivananda Yoga. And really, there's no comparison to how Ashtanga helps us experience the bandhas compared to Shivananda. There's no comparison at all. The Ashtanga sequences are all literally geared to make them happen consciously for us. It's the main thing about Ashtanga. In fact, I would say that without Ashtanga, no one on the planet would really be experiencing the bandhas with true energetically sensitized awareness. So here's a couple of practical points. Utthita Hasta Padagustasana and Ardha Baddha Padmottanasana are the two peak poses of Ashtanga because they make it almost impossible for us not to eventually feel a sensitized, work-type Mula Bandha energetic sensation.